The week before the South Sound Traditional Inuit Kayak Symposium in June of 2025, Dubside and I had packed up the car for a road trip, a kind of pilgrimage really, to visit old friends around the Pacific Northwest. It was a week of conversations, stories, and memories, a warm-up before the long-awaited gathering of traditional kayakers on the shores of the Columbia River. One of our first stops was Seattle to visit Nigel Foster and his wife, Kristin Nelson. Nigel Foster is one of the legendary figures in modern sea kayaking. He's known around the world as an explorer, instructor, designer, and author, a man who has helped shape what sea kayaking has become today. Back in 1977, he and his paddling partner Jeff Hunter became the first to circumnavigate Iceland by kayak, a journey that's still talked about nearly 50 years later. Nigel went on to design some of the most iconic kayaks in production, write influential books like The Art of Kayaking, and teach paddlers all over the world. His reputation isn't just about skill, it's about quiet precision, the artistry of movement on water. His wife, Kristin Nelson, is an artist in her own right, a ceramicist whose studio in Seattle produces elegant handmade porcelain pieces, imperfect by nature. Kristin follows a philosophy the Japanese call wabi-sabi, the idea that beauty lies in imperfection, in humility, in the passage of time. Together, Nigel and Kristin blend art, craft, and adventure in a way that feels uniquely Pacific Northwest. In this episode, Dubside sits down with Nigel Foster to talk about his life on the water, from designing the Vyneck kayak for his Iceland expedition to the sense of wonder that still drives his craft today. You're listening to the Dubcast with Dubside.
So, I've known both of you for quite some time, and I think first I met Nigel probably in the Charleston event, Charleston, South Carolina, the East Coast Canoe and Kayak Festival. Mm-hmm. You had been going there already for many, many years. But I think the first time I went was 2002. On the East Coast sea kayaking circles, which are sort of my roots there, what we knew of big name instructors from the UK area, there was Derek Hutchinson, Nigel Foster, Nigel Dennis. That was the big names. Now I've since learned there are plenty of other big experienced, big name.
Yeah, but they were kind of the originals.
I don't know that I was an original.
Well, but the originals who came over traveling and doing that.
Okay, yeah.
Weren't they? Wouldn't you say they were the original people coming over?
Yeah.
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 It became more of a thing.
Because I mean, the BCU goes back 100 years or more.
Thousands, okay.
But of the people we were familiar with coming over, and the profile names, like Derek Hutchinson had the book and and kayaks, and Nigel Dennis kayaks everybody knew about, and Nigel Foster kayaks we knew about, and there was a Nigel Foster paddle at some point in there, and you had quite a high
and you had
profile.
a book.
You had a big video series, right?
I had a video series and some books. But
the sea kayaking book was pretty widely dispersed.
The other two names there were quite affiliated with the BCU, but you seem to just have your own thing. Am I correct? Like you weren't really doing BCU classes per se.
No, because when I started coming across to the United States, the BCU, the director of coaching, approached me and says, look, we really don't want you doing certification of people in the United States because we're worried about litigation. And you have one court case against the BCU will wipe us off the map.
Wow.
So I stopped renewing my certification for BCU Coaches Awards and stopped doing assessments and official training courses and started doing more of my own thing. And actually I quite enjoyed it because there was no paperwork. And before there was a ton of paperwork that involved in any, a coach training course or instructor training course.
At the Charleston event, when Derek would teach classes, it would be, what do they call it? Advanced Sea Kayaking with Derek Hutchinson. And he was listed as the BCU senior instructor.
I think at Charleston it wasn't so much focused on getting people awards. It was more about giving them an experience on the water with somebody who could coach them good technique. Yeah. So that was a different thing. But coming over to the United States, he used to come across and do British Canoe Union.
Derek.
Yes. Okay. Courses.
And Nigel Dennis would do. I knew people would be going over to the UK to get their 5-star whatever, and we could. Nigel Dennis didn't come to the Charleston very much. A couple of times towards the end he came. I remember, right? And
it was in his interest to come across to some of these events to promote both his boats, but also to promote the classes that he was doing back in Wales. Actually, we go back a long way, Nigel and myself, back to, well, before he went around Britain with Paul Caffin, before he started his business. So it's kind of interesting, lovely to see how well he's done and how far he's taken it all.
Well, tell me about how you got started in kayaking.
Well, I have an older brother, 2 years older than me, and everything that he did, I tried to do. So we used to go down in caves, potholes with the scouts, and we'd go on kayaking trips. He introduced me to kayaking through the scouts, and then we did camping trips with the scouts where we'd paddle down the river and camp overnight and then carry on the next day, weekend. And
this is all in the UK?
This is in the UK, in the southeast of England. I grew up in Brighton, which is a south coast town immediately south from London.
All right.
Go any further south and you fall in the sea. Steep, stony beaches with flints. So not an easy landing, launching type of environment. Chalk cliffs. Mm-hmm. So he bought himself a kayak, which was a skin-on-frame kayak with a rubberized or a plasticized canvas. So they were PBK, Percy Blandford kayaks. And Percy Blandford was probably one of the most prolific kayak designers ever. I mean, he really had thousands of plans all over the world for different kayaks, but also surfboards and canoes.
What time period are we talking about here?
It was the 1960s. 60s. Wow. Before you were born.
I was born all through the 1960s. I lived through every year of the 1960s, just barely.
Anyway, my brother bought a skin-on-frame boat, Percy Blandford kayak, and I looked on in the classified ads in the back of the paper and found a used one and went to see it and bought it. We lived about 2 miles from the sea, up the hill, up in the valley. So we made little carts for our kayaks and we'd wheel them down to the coast from there and pack everything inside and paddle off along the coast and back to Brighton and back to Rottingdean and then haul them back up the cliff.
Really steep hill.
Back up the hill again, back up to where we lived. So that was where I started. Of course, we went on an outdoor course at an outdoor centre and introduced to surfing kayaks in fiberglass slalom kayaks, the new thing.
This is after Boy Scouts?
Yeah, and this is maybe still in the 60s.
Okay.
And I loved it, so I took my kayak and I went surfing. Got a nice wave, dumped, filled it up with pebbles, and of course, managed to drag it out of the sea there. It's not like a sand beach, it's a steep shingle beach.
All right.
So I got the big pebbles out, but there were all these pea-sized pebbles and they stuck between the canvas and the frame, and there was no way that I could get them all out. So obviously I had to start looking for something a bit more appropriate for kayaking in that environment with what I wanted to do. So fiberglass slalom kayak was the next step.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever do slalom?
I did. One of the best pieces of advice that anyone ever gave me for becoming an instructor was try as many different competition aspects of the sport as you can, because every one of them will teach you something different that is really useful for general paddling. And I took that to heart, and I entered marathon races and slalom competitions in kayaks and slalom competitions in single-decked canoes and in tandem canoes and whitewater racing and surf competition, and I tried the whole gamut. And it was a very good way of getting a good education in kayaking in general and canoeing. It's funny, paddling with slalom competitors, good ones, on whitewater rivers, just recreationally, because slalom kayaks aren't really designed for sitting still on whitewater. They're very good for moving through it, moving around on it. And paddling down recreationally, you sort of go down a series of falls, and you'd hop into an eddy behind a rock to have a look to see what's going on next. And sitting there with the slalom kayaks is kind of edgy, because it's so low to the water that the edges catch. So it's a little unsteady and unstable, hanging around. Better for forging through.
So with these different disciplines, how did you gravitate towards sea kayaking?
Well, sea kayaking was what I started with mostly, paddling on the sea, because that's where I was. And it was in whitewater kayaks that I really got interested in it. But a friend of mine, actually a girlfriend of mine, her brother, decided one day he was going to paddle around Britain, and he got in his kayak and he disappeared, came back sometime later having paddled around Britain. And he'd managed his way up the east coast selling fish that he caught daily and living off that. So I thought, it'd be kind of cool to do something like that when I leave university, just hop in a kayak and go somewhere. And I ended up paddling down from Cornwall. I went down surfing for a weekend, and my friend took my surf kayak back to Brighton, and I paddled back. So around Land's End and along the south coast of England back to Brighton, about 400 miles solo, and it was just such a wonderful sense of freedom. And it was, I had to do it again. The next year we went up to Scotland and spent some time around the island of Skye and paddling across to the Outer Hebrides and back. And then the following year we went around Iceland, circumnavigated Iceland.
Can you tell me about the gear being used at that time? And there's no Gore-Tex this time. Did we have day hatches then? And tell me about that.
No, we didn't have day hatches. We did have hatches, but they were homemade. It wasn't
with the straps you strap down, or?
Well, you had the type that were like a submarine locker hatches with a cam on it and a aluminum saucepan lid, like a pressure cooker basically. Just clamp it down. But they were only quite small. So for Iceland, we made bigger hatches laminating around the top of a bucket to get a lip, and then made a spray skirt effectively that went across the top of that. And to stop it imploding, a plywood disc.
So a lot of the stuff you had to make yourself.
Yeah.
No wrist gaskets.
Yeah, the jackets didn't have wrist gaskets. They just had a bit of elastic around here. Yeah. And had a hood, but nothing around the neck to seal it. So the water came in the top and came out the bottom. And I wore a fleece. Fleece was, nylon fleece, synthetic fleece. That was new, and I got a government surplus one-piece suit. And obviously the water came in the top and it soaked through it, and then it came out the bottom and into the kayak. and then we'd have to pump it out. So we had hand pumps on the back deck to pump with, which we had to do fairly frequently because a lot of water came in that way in the weather that we had.
So the paddles you're using this time, were these wood or fiberglass or what?
They were wood. Lendl paddles, Alistair Wilson from Lendl Paddles gave us paddles to use for the Iceland trip. And they had a fiberglass shaft and a laminated wood blade on each end. So it's a number of laminations, and I guess they're...
But they weren't take apart.
Okay, yeah, one piece, yeah. Were these feathered then?
feathered.
So it was kind of awkward on your deck. It was awkward on your deck.
Well, I did take a spare paddle. I took a slalom paddle, which is what I was familiar with because I wasn't sure.
And what distinguishes a slalom paddle?
Slightly spoon. Well, they're more of a flat curve. So if you imagine that you've got a spoon paddle would be like a spoon, and you'd be able to put water in it and carry it around. Yeah. But if it was flat from edge to edge, you wouldn't be able to carry water in it. But it still has the curve for grabbing. Okay. So that sort of shape.
And I imagine these were somewhat heavier than paddles we're familiar with today.
Somewhat, yes. But they were wood. The slalom paddles then were wooden. And I took my paddle as a spare, which meant that I had to put it on the kayak somehow, which it just fit. If I strap the one blade just behind me, the other blade would be more or less upright alongside the hull at the stern, almost like a skeg out of the water. You drop it down a little bit, it would be like a skeg. And strapped it like that. And I wondered how it would be for launching and landing. It wasn't that much of a problem, surprisingly.
So when did you get involved with the BCU, or did you take classes in BCU for skills initially, or how did that go?
Well, I got a job at an outdoor centre in the south of England, and you didn't really, at that time, need any qualifications in instructional qualifications with the BCU to get that kind of work. But then they changed the policy within the county and said we need all of the people that are instructing kayaking to have BCU Senior Instructor Award in the discipline that they're working in. So I went and got my Senior Instructor in inland kayak, sea kayak, and later got the open canoe and also the surf kayaking.
So in the curriculum, where does rolling come in? Is that an advanced skill? That's not the first thing you teach people. How does that go?
Well, in those days when I started, rolling wasn't that common in just general paddling, and then it became a little bit more important. And when I was working at the centre there, we had College of Education students, physical education students, who would be PE teachers from one of the local colleges, came for rolling classes every week through the term time. And so that was something we did in the swimming pool. And so it was much more common then.
Now the typical kayaks at that time, the sea kayaks, were these fairly high volume kayaks?
Well, the range of sea kayaks, I think if you have something like the Nordkapp, came out in 1975. Yeah, okay. And the whole range of different hull shapes that they brought. Derek's boats with his ice flow and the almanac and things like that. After the Badaka. Yeah. And North Sea kayak. Actually, the first sea kayak I owned was a North Sea kayak, which was Derek Hutchinson's first design. So
how do we get to Nigel Foster kayaks? This was somewhat later, or?
Well, 1977 I paddled around Iceland, but the year before, I was in Scotland and paddling in a boat that I'd paddled around the south coast of England in, and it didn't handle how I wanted it to. And I thought I knew what I wanted to do to it to make it better. And I'd considered cutting the deck off and redesigning the deck and putting it on the same hull. Instead, one of the people that I was paddling with in Scotland worked at the University College of London on computers, and his job was cutting down the time taken by some of the commonly used programs so that you could reduce the computer time.
Okay.
A mainframe computer,
Yeah.
with magnetic tape and boxes of punch cards. So we got together because he was thinking of doing a kayak design of his own, and someone suggested we work together. So we got our heads together and put my ideas into his computer when he had some downtime, and ran the numbers, and we eventually came out with the shape that didn't look right. So a bit of tweaking here and there until it looked how I wanted it to look, and then printed out the sections, set them up on a frame, and basically that's how it started.
All right.
Getting the first design, and that's the kayak that we used for paddling around Iceland. The original, the first one, you have a learning curve with everything you do.
Yeah.
So we made the complete plug, filled it with foam between the frames, shaved off the foam to make it the right shape, put a glass fiber skin on it, filler on that to make it, polish it down and get all the low spots and the high spots evened out. And then every time I went down, every weekend, getting into winter, it looked like there were more holes or more low spots. And what was happening, it was shrinking. The foam was shrinking and bringing in the sides. So it looked like an emaciated cow with all the ribs showing through. And so we cut our work short and just made a mold from that and had a test boat, which I paddled up and down the coast to see if it worked. And then we started again from scratch, built another plug, and produced the final version that we used in Iceland. Very small cockpit, a little too small.
Little.
It was all right on the prototype, same size on the actual boat, but slightly different angles. So normally, with that type of kayak, you'd sit on the back deck, feed your feet in, and then slide forwards into the cockpit. But it wasn't quite enough room to get my knees through to actually sit down. The only way I could get into it was to kneel on the seat facing the back of the boat and then corkscrew in. And then the only way I could get out was to do the reverse of that.
That's a little complex to be getting in and out of.
Awkward in surf
wondered
landings.
what it would be like going around the Iceland coast, hopping in and out in a hurry. I did faceplant a few times.
You were more nimble in those days.
And wetter.
So when was the first production kayak?
That was
it. Okay. And what was that called?
The Vyneck.
Vyneck?
Yes.
Vyneck.
Vyneck.
Vyneck. Okay.
I can see that you're wondering why.
Yeah, why do you call it that?
Well,
Good question.
the solo trip that I was talking about earlier that started in the surfing town Newquay on the north coast of Cornwall, and paddled back to Brighton around Land's End.
400 miles.
And down near Land's End, there's the Sennan Cove, and then there's a nice surf beach White Sands Bay, but the eastern end of White Sands Bay is pretty hairy, and just around the corner and just offshore, the Vyneck rocks. And I was some distance offshore, paddling along, and the swell down at that end of Cornwall is typically bigger than it is at the surf beaches further north. And suddenly I had this huge set came along, which was peaking way out there, and started breaking, and I got through the first one and got carried backwards quite a way by the second one, and then got through the third one, and then it calmed down. And it was a long way into the shore, and the waves were just rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling all the way in onto the rocky end of the beach there. And then I made my way across the bay to land, and landed through all the surfers. And that landing through the surf there was about the biggest surf that I'd ever been in at that time. And it sort of stuck in my mind there for the rest of that trip.
I would think so, yeah.
It still trembles to talk about it.
And I thought, okay, I'll name it the Vyneck because that'll remind me and keep me humble.
Yeah, well, that would bring up, jumping way ahead, you just came out with a book, and it's called Just One More, Guitar, Kayak, Coffee.
That one, yeah.
Tell me about this book.
Well, it's really about why do we collect? Why is it we gather more than one thing of something that we like? And those are three things that I enjoy. I enjoy coffee, I enjoy guitars, I enjoy kayaks. And I could have chosen one or two other things, or a number of other things that I'm interested in, but I narrowed it down to three things that wherever I travel, there's usually kayaks, guitars, and coffee. It's seldom any of the three missing. And a lot of the people that I meet with through kayaking play guitar, and so all over the world I've had the opportunity to sit in amongst a group of friends and play guitar along with other people and drink coffee.
You usually have jet lag.
Yep, lots of coffee for jet lag. And the kayaking is what binds it all together. But you think, well, why would you want more than one kayak? You think, well, I was talking a little bit about the different aspects of kayaking, disciplines of kayaking. Do you want to race on a whitewater river race? It's the fastest time from A to B straight down the river. If you want to go slalom, you've got to go through all the gates. So two different kayaks, one that's straight tracking and one that's very maneuverable. One that's got a lot of volume for riding down the waves and not being stopped by them when you're going through rapids. And the other one, very low volume so that it goes underneath the gates and doesn't hit the hanging poles. Okay, two. What about a surf kayak, maybe for surfing, and maybe a sea kayak for doing some trips, or maybe a little sea kayak for doing day trips. You know, it soon that adds up. And then the question is, well, how much space do you have? Mm-hmm. And then finally you say, well, what does your partner say?
Okay, well, can I say something then? Because that's what you think the book is about. But it is about collecting, but I think my interpretation is that it's about collecting stories. And even though Nigel is a kayaker, he's, believe it or not, he's not really obsessed with kayaking so much, but all the places that the kayaks take you and the encounters and experiences that happen because of the kayaks. And really, any of his books are full of stories that he's collected while kayaking. And the guitar kayak coffee thing is those are little excuses for putting in the stories, which are almost more about the people who kayak and the places where he's found the coffee. And that's just my twist.
I'm with you on there. The kayak is just a vehicle, and then that takes you to all the,
And the people that you meet that are making Greenland kayak paddles in in Denmark, or do you know a band called DAD? Dad, it's a Danish band.
No. If they were Greenlandic, I would know them, but the Danish ones I'm not up on. But
So if you think of stories,
yeah,
I've got stories in here from Taiwan and from Indonesia and Europe and all over. But the DAD is a glam band from the 80s, 1980s, that's still playing. There's a little luthier in Denmark, Dennis, and he's very humble. He's a kayaker.
What's his specialty?
His specialty is
classical
guitars. He builds classical guitars, and he's been doing that for pretty much all his life. Stig Peterson from Dad, the band, plays bass. But he plays a 2-string bass.
really.
And yeah, a 2-string bass. And he would go to see Dennis, and he'd scribble down on a piece of paper a plan for the guitar that he wants Dennis to make. And Dennis would tear his hair out trying to figure out how to put it together. And Stig would be jumping up and down, coming in, have you finished it yet? Have you finished it yet? And he started, I'd never heard of the band, so I looked him up on YouTube and saw some of these guitars. So one of them is like a rocket, and it's a full-size rocket.
Yeah.
You know, the body, so you can't see the fingerboard from the audience. Yeah. And there's a little cutaway to get your hand in there to play, and there's a little cutaway for playing the strings.
So it covers the whole fingerboard.
And then there's the tail end of the rocket. You put fireworks in there and have flames coming out of the back of it as he's prancing around on stage. Another one he built.
Pretty fantastic. You can find it on YouTube.
Another one he built was like a reverse guitar. So the head of the guitar was like the body of a guitar, like a little Strat, and then the body of the guitar was like the head. You know, it had 2 giant tuning keys and this massive guitar head. So just an odd little thing.
One like an iPhone.
One like an iPhone. And so it's this huge iPhone, and it's playing this, and it's live streaming the audience while it's playing. Just wacky ideas. Anyway, just you don't meet these people every day. You do when you're kayaking. You always meet people who are doing just something a little less than ordinary. And the stories, I mean, you end up with a catalogue of stories of different people in different places that are very special. So I've chosen a few stories, but they're all related to guitars or coffee or kayaks.
Well, I can understand easily from personal experience why you need more than one guitar, why you need several guitars.
I didn't go into the guitars.
Yeah, like well, you can have a nylon string guitar and a steel string acoustic guitar and an electric guitar, and if you want to experiment with different tunings, then you need more guitars because you just leave the guitar in that tuning. But tell me why you need more than one kind of coffee. That I'm a little.
I didn't say you need more than one kind of coffee, but.
But you're collecting things. I thought that was the theme we're talking about here.
Maybe different coffee makers. Here's on the back. There's a picture of him with a one version of a maker, a Bialetti
coffee.
So you don't necessarily need more than one kind of coffee as long as you have one good coffee.
You need to have a way of making it.
Oh, a coffee maker. Okay, I got it.
And you need to drink more than one.
You need to drink more than one. I mean,
he does anyway.
You knew Russell Farrow.
Yes.
And Russell. Whenever we traveled anywhere, we had our little espresso makers with a.
Well, I can remember you in Charleston every morning. You had your little system there, and yeah.
But they're only a double shot, and you split that between 2 people. You have 1 shot of coffee. Now, tell me you don't need just one more of those. Of course you do. You need to have multiples. sometimes more than a dozen before we get going.
Uh-huh.
Always one more.
So I would like to transition over to Kristin and talk about
No way.
pottery. So now I see on your website you've got a partner, and you together the two of you make these.
No, I don't have a partner.
Okay.
But
Yeah, collaboration.
I do a collaboration with someone named Jill Smith.
Okay.
And it's kind of like this. She does these paper shades, and I do lamps.
Lampshades.
Yeah.
And you do the base of the lamp.
And what happens is if there's some kind of sale or event, like one we do in October is called Glass Art and Design, and it's at a few studios in Seattle.
Okay.
And then the one we did this year, it was Jill's lampshades, my lamp bases, and then it was at the studio of this woman who does mosaics. So it's that event, and then for the event, she has a showroom with all these lampshades. I have made a bunch of lamp bases, and we put some things together that we think look good.
Yeah, I can see
really
there's
plan
some
it.
thought behind.
Yeah, but we don't
getting it.
plan it. And then usually what happens is people come and they see and they go, oh, we love it. But my living room is this color and this is this. So then we start mixing them all up. But it helps us to, see our work in a different way and reach different customers. And it's really pretty fun. I got my degree in art and I used to show in galleries. And now I'm finally getting back to doing some art things. And the things I'm working on are not exactly lamps, but they hang from the ceiling. So they have a little bit of movement and light in them.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you're making vases.
And I make vases, vases. Yeah. So I have a collaboration with the flower shop around the corner who just dropped off last week's flowers that are getting too stale, which is great for us because we love flowers. And then I do my thing with Jill with the shades. So, there's different ways of interacting with people and projects. And I sell online, but I sometimes work with designers. Like right now, I'm working on some lamps for a hotel in Costa Rica.
I've thought about what you could do with the pottery type of stuff in clay. The shape of a kayak doesn't quite work because it's too finely.
No. Actually, I have done things that are influenced.
Okay.
And I think of .65, that's Nigel's Kayaks. Do you know their logo? It's sort of a shape like that, and it had the red and the white.
Yeah.
One year I made those kayak bowls for all their vendors. Yeah.
For their distributors.
They're distributors.
Of .65 distributors.
So they had distributors in 20 countries. And I made these bowls and I took them to the post office during Christmas and they had to do the labels for 20 different countries. Do you know how tedious and awful that is? It was horrible.
There was a long line. Everybody behind you in
They
line was
hated
probably
me.
screaming. Yeah.
Yes, but no, so I've done that. And also I did some olive dishes that were narrow and long because sometimes when people eat their appetizers, they have little things like that. Yeah. And we always took the espresso cups kayaking and on trips, even, wilderness type things we bring.
And the bowls.
And the bowls,
The
yeah, we did
Labrador,
the bowls. Because it makes eating so much nicer. Yeah. And drinking. I don't see why Nigel has, I know why he has this metal cup. Someone gave it to him and it's insulated. So it keeps his coffee warm longer. That's good.
This was the expedition we did in Lake Toba.
In Indonesia.
On Sumatra, which is the biggest caldera lake, big volcanic crater in the world. It has a lake in the bottom of the crater, which is 60 miles long.
So big it has a lake in the bottom of the lake. Anyway, so the coffee does taste better when it comes out of a ceramic cup.
All right. The the original Nigel Foster kayaks, with the shadow and the silhouette and all those different. Was that the Whiskey? Was one of those?
Well, the original one's Shadow, Silhouette, and Legend.
Yeah, Legend.
And then the Rumor and the Echo came out after that, and then the
that's a different manufacturer from Point 65. Is that correct?
Yes, so the original ones came out with
Seaward was some.
Well, yeah, Seaward built them, but before that, Walden Kayaks, and before that, Southern Exposure Sea Kayaks were making some in Florida, and Nedjaks in the Netherlands.
Watermark?
Yeah, Watermark, which is a different watermark from the big one.
In the Netherlands.
And those are no longer being produced? Or
No.
Okay.
We have some.
So now they're collector's items, right?
Totally.
What, just one more?
But now the Point 65 ones, you're still involved with that company.
Yes, and Point 65 stopped making composite boats because of the environmental issues with the
Fiberglass?
With the fiberglass and the resins. But they're still producing rotomolded kayaks. And they have the Whiskey 16 in rotomolded plastic.
All right. Very good. Well, anything else to say to my podcast listeners?
Well, you could check out my website or my Amazon author page, which has a lot of my books on it. And I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
NigelKayaks.com.
NigelKayaks.com. And what about the pottery?
Well, I have to say my website is a little different. It's vitceramics.com.
vitceramics.com.
Yeah.
And the VIT is Vit.
Vit means white in Swedish, and my current things have only white lines on them. And it also stems from vitrification, which is what happens when ceramics and glazes go in the kiln.
Huh.
It's a chemical process.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being on the Dubcast with
Well,
Dubside.
thank you, Dubside. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Dubside. It's been a long time, but really sweet.